Buenos dias. Hello everyone. My name's Lewis. I'm an English teacher. I live here in Spain. I'm from the UK. You might tell from my accent. I'm from a small seaside town in the south of England, kind of near Brighton area. And I moved to Spain. I'm an English teacher. And basically on this series, and especially on this type of video, I'm going to be doing kind of like more long form conversational style where you get a bit more organic conversations about teaching English abroad, TEFL, moving to Spain, general kind of like global mobility. On this particular episode, what I'd really like to talk about is how I achieved global mobility through achieving a CELTA. Or I didn't get a CELTA, I got a Cert TESOL. They're the same kind of qualification level. So in episode 1, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about my journey from deciding to become a TEFL teacher, an English teacher, and what that means, and then how exactly I went about that. So you'll have a kind of idea of how someone might get started. It's a very similar scenario today as it was when I decided to become a TEFL teacher in about 2017 or 2018. So very similar route, very similar method. If you're someone who's in the UK or somewhere else and you say, you know what, I want to become an English teacher, I want to develop a skill where I can go travel around the world, work in different countries. You might even want to do short-term contracts in other countries. You might want to go to Japan for a few months. You might want to go to Italy, for 4 months, 6 months. Then actually becoming an English teacher is a really easy way to do that, especially seeing as the world does feel like a bit of a crazy place, and I've certainly feel that ramp up even more over the last few years. So I really think the idea of getting a skill that could take you overseas is kind of like a nice little insurance plan, at least. And it is for me. There's a couple different places I might go. I might utilize my TEFL certification to go abroad. So obviously I've got England, I'm a citizen of England, but also I've lived in Spain for a very long time. So I'll get permanent residency here, but there's also the possibility that I might become a Spanish citizen as well within the next few years, which is great. And then also I've got an eye on Colombia as well. So having that kind of global mobility, being able to just pack a couple of suitcases with your family and say, right, we're gonna go over there, it's a nice thing to have in such a crazy world. So today, let's get started. So like I said, this is episode 1. I've not actually done this before, and I've not spoken to the camera in such a kind of free flow way in a conversational style like this. So please forgive me if this is a little bit awkward or a little bit cringe at times. It feels awkward for me at least, but I'll give it my best go. The way we're going to do this is I'm going to go through a question and answer format, and let's just jump straight into it, guys. Okay, so the first question is, what is it that made you want to leave the UK? Was it a specific moment or just a build-up over time? For me, it was definitely a build-up. Before 2016, I never even wanted to leave the UK. Growing up, I was the type of kid, I never went on holidays or anything like this. I'd never been abroad until I was about 18 years old. And so in my mind, moving abroad, living abroad, it was never really there. I had no real concept of abroad, to be honest with you. So it was definitely a slow build-up. It wasn't until I went to university where I heard stories of people talking about backpacking and traveling and things like this, where I started to think, oh, maybe I could do that. But even then, back then when I heard people say, oh, I'll go backpacking or a gap year, I just totally associated it with wealth, which I didn't have, or family wealth. And, nothing against those guys at all. I would definitely do that if I had family wealth as well, but that wasn't me. That wasn't my scenario. So I thought that kind of that level of travel or going abroad, living abroad, going away for a year, I thought it was associated with family wealth, which it isn't. And I learned that a little bit later on. Regardless, I went traveling. So I did a backpacking trip. I saved up for a year, went on a backpacking trip, and it was really then where it opened my eyes to maybe living abroad or working out, well, how can I do something like this, but how can I make it a bit more forever, How can I make this a lifestyle? Now, you can't really make a holiday, your full-on lifestyle. I didn't mean a holiday, but I mean, how can I get away? Is there something I can do to escape this situation? Because before that, I was in London, and I was after uni. I was in London, and I was working 70-hour weeks, and I was totally miserable. I was totally miserable. It's like 5:30 starts, 1 hour commute or whatever. get to work, this, and once you arrive at work, it's dark outside. Yeah. Then when you finish work at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m., it's dark outside. You get on the bus, you go home, and my work was so busy that by the time I got home, I had to keep working to just make sure that the next day wasn't, humiliating as well as miserable, because it was going to be miserable, but would it be humiliatingly miserable or not? So that wasn't a very nice experience there as I was living in London. And so I did that for a year, and I thought, oh, is this it? Is this it? That was really the big question. Is this my life now? And I thought, well, no, fuck that. Okay, like, life is too short. I can't be this miserable when I'm 21 years old. That I can't let that fly. I can't keep, And one thing I've learned over time, if you saw my previous video as well, was that if you don't plan stuff and you don't take a decisive action and stuff, the years will just flow by. Because the years are going to flow by anyway. But if you don't put in an action plan and say, no, this has to stop, you don't take a bit of risk, it will just, like 10 years will just go past and you'll have done nothing. So that was my situation. I said, is this it? And I thought, you know what, I'm looking for something a little bit different. So that's when I opened my mind. And by the way, an acquaintance did also tell me, oh, you should teach English. And that really opened my mind to it. So that's it, really. That's why, I decided to leave England in the end. It was more about, I was just miserable in my own personal situation. I realized that today in 2024, that a lot of people might want to leave the UK for very different reasons and very justifiable reasons. So I realized I might be talking to people who are thinking slightly different to me back then. But regardless, I view CELTA and Cert TESOL and teaching English abroad as the vehicle to achieving that goal of leaving England, moving abroad. It's a very easy vehicle. All right, guys, so let's move on to the next question and let's see where we go. So, did you see teaching English abroad as a serious career move, or was it just an excuse to travel at first? I didn't see it as a serious career move. I'll be honest, when I did it, like I said, I was about 20. By the time I did it, I was about 22 or 23 years old. And at that point, I didn't care about money. I was in this phase where I was like, I don't give a shit about money. I don't care how much I earn. I don't care how much I get. All I want is, sorry, there's a car going by outside. All I want is for my life to be exciting. So that was the ambition. So did I see it as a serious career move? I don't know, to be honest. I knew that I was going to take it very seriously, but I wasn't sure if that's what I would be doing for the next 10 years or not. I had no idea. In my mind, I might have thought, well, I'm just going to do this until the fun stops. That's probably more realistic. But really, I chose to do this not out of a serious career move or just for travel even. It was really, I want my life to be exciting. I want my life to be like a movie, I wanted stuff to happen. I didn't want the years to go by and just do nothing. I needed something to happen. I needed to make my life a movie in that way. So making lots of money and having a great career, it just wasn't at the forefront of my mind whatsoever. Even travel wasn't at the forefront of my mind. What was at the forefront of my mind was living my life and enjoying myself, having stories to say, in 30, 40, 50, 60 years, God willing, right? And that's what I cared about. And whether or not that's a mistake or not, I don't know. We'll find out, okay? We're already, I'm coming up to 10 years, not 10 years, I'm coming up to probably about 8 years or so, right? Coming up to 8 years teaching English. Is it a mistake? Doesn't feel like a mistake. I've enjoyed it. I can't say that I regret big portions, of my 20s. There have been definitely things I regret. Sure, maybe my money is definitely not as high as it would have been if I remained in London working in that job. I mean, it definitely isn't the same. But basically, I can't compare these things because I can't compare, what my life would have been like if I'd stayed in that misery working 70 hours a week and earning a good wage. Don't know. I don't know how my life would have gone. So it's unfair to compare it. But what I do know is that I have lived a lot of experiences in my 20s and I've really enjoyed them. So yeah, that's that. And you know, teaching English abroad, it just struck me as, again, the vehicle in which I could maximize my 20s in the way that I envisioned them being. And that's exactly what it turned out to be. All right. Next question. So, did you have... no, sorry. How did people around you react when you told them you were moving abroad? Did anyone try to talk you out of it? Well, I'm kind of very fortunate in one sense, because both of my parents are extremely supportive, and I have to be honest, their expectations aren't the highest in the world of me. You know, as long as I'm, you know, being a good person and following my morals, they are very much happy for me to explore whatever avenue that I see fit. You know, as long as that's, you know, moral and, you know, in good keeping. So my parents had no problem at all when I told them, oh, I'm quitting this job that's paying me £34,000 a year, and I'm going to go and teach English for $12 an hour in, I don't know, Mexico, right? They were absolutely fine with it. Probably the person who questioned me the most was myself, because of course, when you take a more than £10,000 pay cut in 2017, and you're 22 years old or 21 years old, you think, 22, you think, is this what I should be doing? You know, am I losing my mind here? So really, I was the person who questioned it the most. But the questions really stopped once I got started, once I made the move abroad, once I got the training. Slowly, it was just like, oh no, I feel so good. I feel so good. This is worth the money that I'm missing out on by being stuck in London 70 hours a week, seeing no sunlight. This is worth it. I have no doubts about that whatsoever. So let's, what we'll do, let's move on to how I became a TEFL teacher. How did I become an internationally recognized CELTA or Cert TESOL teacher? And I used the vehicle of a Cert TESOL, and we'll talk about that now, what I did, how the course was, because if you're sitting here listening to this, a lot of you will be thinking, maybe this is something I could do. And I think my experience will help you a little bit, maybe make a decision, but hey, let's push you in the direction and see, oh yeah, this sounds like something I would like to do, and why I decided to do it. So, did you have any teaching experience before starting the CELTA or Cert TESOL, or were you jumping in completely fresh? So just before I answer that, just so everyone's very, very clear, I kind of mentioned it before, but you've got two qualifications that are worth getting. They're internationally recognized. If you complete one of these courses, you will be internationally recognized as a qualified English teacher of foreign languages. And that's really what you want. I know all the time the questions are the same. Oh, can I do this TEFL course? Or what about this one? It's much cheaper. It's £200, it's £100, it's £40, it's free. Can I do this? And guys, I did such a deep dive on this topic. I mean, I spent a year thinking about designing and creating my own TEFL course that would have all these different factors. And in the end, when it really came down to it, and I was thinking, right, am I going to start publishing this? Am I going to start charging people money for this? I decided that I couldn't do it. And the reason why I couldn't do it is because unless you get a CELTA by Cambridge or a Cert TESOL by Trinity College London, they're the two qualifications you decide on. Unless you get one of those, you really can't guarantee, in my opinion, you cannot guarantee that an employer, or the majority of employers at least, will take you and your qualification seriously. And I don't know about you, but I would much prefer to pay the extra money, pay the £1,500 or £2,000. It's under £2,000. I think it's between £1,500, £2,000. I would prefer to pay that 100% and actually move with confidence and become an internationally qualified, recognized English teacher of foreign languages. The investment is worth it. And if you take it seriously, the investment will be worth it for you. So just bear that in mind. 2 courses, CELTA, Cert TESOL, and then there's everything else. And everything else is just so far in the back. I'm deciding after a lot of research to say, you know what? Fuck the rest of them. CELTA, Cert TESOL. That's my opinion, and I'm going to stick with that one. So, did I have teaching experience before starting the course, or was I jumping in completely fresh. So I did a Cert TESOL, and I did it in Barcelona, and I did it in person. Guys, if you have the opportunity, do your Cert TESOL in person. You get to be in front of real students really quickly. You get face-to-face time with the tutors, and I don't care what anyone says, you can't recreate that on a bloody Zoom call or whatever it is. Now, of course, if circumstance means that you can't move abroad for 30 days and do the course, because of course then you have to pay for accommodation and such and live somewhere for a month, and of course it's more hassle. But the only thing that would really stop me from going in person is that my circumstance was at such a situation where I literally cannot afford or go abroad to do this qualification. So if that's you, consider online. But in all other circumstances, and I would move mountains to ensure that you can go in person, face to face, and teach. I don't see how you can be fully prepared, even if teaching online courses, even with fully trained tutors. Just go face to face, guys. It'll be much more beneficial for you. So I did face to face in Barcelona, and I did a Cert TESOL. Lots of people ask, well, should I do the CELTA or the Cert TESOL? There are some little differences between the two, but nothing substantial. Effectively, they're placed on exactly the same, in terms of employers look at them very similarly. I believe the CELTA is a little bit more famous, okay? So it's a bit more, people know the name a little bit better. But really, I mean, I've worked in some of the poshest schools in the world. No one has ever questioned the fact that I had a Cert TESOL and not a CELTA. Effectively, if you got a Cert TESOL and you interview well, I mean, what else to it? They'll take you over a CELTA candidate any day. And if any employer doesn't know or thinks that a CELTA is better than a Cert TESOL, then my opinion of that is just that they're maybe not that well educated on what a Cert TESOL actually is, which would make me think, well, how much they actually know. Okay? So, teaching experience. So, I did have teaching experience before I did my Cert TESOL. So I did primary education at university. So I did primary education with QTS. So in 3 years, I was in primary schools, and I achieved my qualified teacher status in England, which was really difficult, and also I didn't enjoy teaching. I actually hated teaching in primary schools. So that was a good choice of education. Thank you. 50 grand in debt. Yes. Oh, what a fucking moron. Anyway, sorry for my language. Right. So I did primary education with QTS. I had experience in schools, and I did take my training quite seriously, and I wanted to become a very good teacher. When I got out of university, though, by the time I was finished, I was like, I can't go into a primary school and teach full time because I will be super, super miserable. So I did something else where I became the director of a company that worked with primary school children, and I kind of used my skills that way. I got a job, but yes, I had experience. I knew how to stand in front of a group of people, children as well, and deliver instructions. So I did have some experience, but you don't need experience in order to get onto a Cert TESOL or a CELTA. That being said, of course it did help me, because if you have the experience of standing in front of a group of people and delivering instructions and using a whiteboard and preparing a lesson, regardless of the topic, those skills alone, those presentation and delivery skills, they're very useful. Okay, they are very useful, but you certainly don't need that before you join the CELTA or the Cert TESOL. And for me, that's one of the best things about these courses, is that you don't need that experience in the classroom before you start. Now, I did my Cert TESOL, and it was quite a small group, because I think I went in February. I did it in February or March, and there was about 5 or 6 people on my Cert TESOL program. I was the only person with experience in the classroom, so of course my experience of the Cert TESOL was a little bit different. Some of those people that I was with, rightly so, were really nervous, of course, about stepping into a classroom and delivering to students. And you'll teach adult students in person in a real classroom within, I think it's within a few days. You do your first lesson. It's a short lesson, okay? It's a short lesson. But regardless, if you haven't done that before, it is so nerve-wracking, guys. When I first stepped in front of a group of students and taught, Whew, it's a horrible feeling, you know. It really is, but it's brilliant because, of course, it's about challenging yourself. And I speak as someone of I always get anxiety about those kind of things, but over time I've managed to be able to deliver lessons, and you can become your teacher self. You know, you can do it. But other people in my course didn't have experience, and what that means is that you're going to go into the course, if you don't have experience in a classroom or something like this, you're likely going to go into the course with a bit more nerves, a bit more anxiety, because that's what it is. You step in front of 12 adults and you're teaching them, that is a bit nerve-wracking. So expect to feel those emotions and brace for it and get ready for it. If there's anything you can do before the course, maybe it could be to try and work on delivery of information in any way. Okay. Some of you might, if you've worked in other roles before, then you might know, or maybe you're just socially a bit more confident in that way and you feel like you can, but it might be a nice idea to try and work on some form of delivery before you join a course like a Cert, TESOL or a CELTA, just so you can get used to the idea of sharing information, speaking at a volume that reaches someone in the back. So that's what I'd recommend. So I did have a bit of experience before going in. That being said, teaching English as a foreign language is absolutely nothing like teaching maths and PE and English to English students and history and science, right? They're worlds apart. So whilst I had experience in delivery and some teaching techniques, I had absolutely no experience with the subject knowledge and certain things you have to do when you're teaching an English lesson. So my grammar knowledge, oh gosh, guys, it's so bad when I started. It was so bad. I mean, all I knew was that I could speak the English language. That's the only thing that I knew. I knew that I knew how to speak English, but I had no idea how I knew how to speak English, and I had no idea how to explain anything about speaking English. I had no concept of grammar acquisition. I had no concept of pronunciation. So if in the early days of my teaching, it's so embarrassing, like if you was to ask me, so all right, so you said bigger, I am bigger than you. Well, why did you say bigger? Why did you add ER onto, like, why? I would just be like, oh, well, English is weird, but no, there was grammar rules there. And over time, you slowly acquire more knowledge. But just so you know, just to make you feel a bit more comfortable, even as a teacher and someone who had been in the classroom before, when I stepped into that Cert TESOL course, I had no concept of grammar, of spelling. It was atrocious. It was absolutely atrocious. Okay, so take a little bit of refuge in that, if you will. Now, let's go on to some other questions. So let's talk about the course experience. What was it like? So what training did you do? How did you become a TEFL teacher? Oh, sorry, I explained that already. Barcelona, 1 month. I got a Cert TESOL. I think at the time it cost me about 1,400 euros. It's probably more expensive now. I got a Cert TESOL, and I loved it. I thought it was great. Overall, it was great, and we'll go into that a bit more. Did you research other TEFL certifications before choosing this one? Why did you go with Cert TESOL? I went with Cert TESOL because I got in contact with a couple of people that I knew who had become English teachers. They told me that they did the Cert TESOL in Barcelona. They said Barcelona was a fantastic place to do your language training. So I was like, right, Barcelona, that sounds sexy, that sounds nice, that sounds cool. They say the trainers are good in Barcelona. So I went to Barcelona and I did the Cert TESOL. I chose Cert TESOL over CELTA just because a couple of people I knew had done Cert TESOL and they were working very successfully. So I was like, right, I'll go and do that. I did find out after that Cert TESOL was a little less academic than the CELTA supposedly, and focused a bit more on the learner and different learning styles and stuff, which I also found interesting because to me it sounded practical. It sounded more practical. I do also know that if you're listening to this and you're not a native speaker, that the requirements for Cert TESOL are lower than the requirements for a CELTA in terms of language. So I believe if you achieve, don't quote me on this, I need to research this further, I'll release another video on it. I believe that for Cert TESOL you need to be a B2 speaker, B2 competency, okay? And for a CELTA you need C2. So that is a massive jump in level. So if you're not a native speaker, but your English is very good and you want to teach, and then Cert TESOL is probably the one to look at first. And also, I was also told that the Cert TESOL could be a little bit better if you are going to go on to work with teenagers. I think they prepared me pretty adequately for the learning style of teaching teenagers, but you don't get to teach teenagers on the actual course. The reason why it's so important, guys, to learn how to teach teenagers is because most jobs, most language academies, most schools, a lot of your work will be focused on teenagers, and that might sound scary, but I think it's actually a good thing. Teenagers are my favorite learners to teach. Usually it's often exam focused or level focused. There's usually really clear ambitions and goals. The teenagers aren't the ones directly paying for the lessons as well, which means that the expectations are a little bit lower. Sometimes when people are the first they're the buyer, they can sit there with their arms crossed every time thinking, right, and at the end of every session they're thinking, well, was that worth my £30? And that doesn't really happen with teenagers. So I like the little reduction of pressure. I like that you can have fun. I feel like in teaching teenagers I can have a little bit more fun because again, there's not that they enjoy having a good time in the class, having fun, learning English, and there's usually a very clear examination goal. So don't worry about the fact of teaching teenagers. The reason why I bring it up again is because I've heard that Cert TESOL can be a little bit better preparation if you go on to teach those teenagers. Now, why Barcelona and Spain? I kind of mentioned that already. I'd heard, basically, it was through word of mouth, and I usually trust word of mouth and experiences of friends and acquaintances that I know. They told me that the training centres in Barcelona were fantastic. Barcelona's a great place to do it, and they were right. And also, just like in retrospect, Spain is quite a good place to do training for becoming an English teacher with Cert TESOL and CELTA, because of the language. If you're from Britain or if you're from Europe, Spanish is a Latin-based language, so it's not so far removed from English. Okay, that means that you can come here and you can learn a bit of Spanish a bit easier, but also the learner profile of a Spanish student is much easier than the learner profile, let's say, of a Chinese student, because the Spanish student has certain Latin-based language in their head that they can easily apply over English, if that makes sense, right? And with other languages, they're just so far removed that connection is a little bit more difficult. So I think it's a nice place to start teaching because it's kind of like an English-friendly Spanish students. It's a bit easier for them to learn English. That's what I'm trying to say, right? Okay. All right. What were your first impressions when you started the course? I thought it was really professional. That's the first thing I thought. I was like, wow, I loved how serious it was. I wasn't sure. I'd heard, things about TEFL and teaching English as some kind of like backpacker thing. And I had some, image of someone just, I don't know, teaching their lesson and going and drinking beer. Well, maybe you do that anyway, but I had it as unserious. That's what I thought. I thought, oh, it's a bit silly. Oh, it's a bit, $5 an hour. It's a bit backpackerish, And as soon as I stepped into the training centre and I started training with my Cert TESOL, I realised, oh no, this is serious. They take it serious. It's a serious subject. And learning about TEFL is exciting. And there's a whole world. It is a whole new world, right? Learning TEFL, learning how to teach English as a foreign language. There's so much to it. There's so much detail to it. And the first impression I got when I started my Cert TESOL was that, wow, these guys take it seriously. There's so much to learn. And that really excited me because it made me think of it as, this could be a career. This could be something I do for a while. This is something I can improve at, which is also massive. All right. And, and that's gone on to be true now. So I've been a teacher for about 8 years. And basically the improvement or getting better as a teacher for me, as someone who likes to improve and get better at what they do, It's just been, I've just been developing perpetually, just trying to get better, trying to improve, and there's always something new to learn. There's always an online conference to go to or a conference in person, and it's just got that progressive skill. It's a progressive skill, and I've really enjoyed that process. And that started that idea of perpetually getting better and developing as a teacher and becoming more for your students. That started when I went to that Cert TESOL training center, and they implemented that into me. It's like, oh, there's so many levels. I'm never going to get to the top of all the levels, but I'm going to start climbing up. And I love that. So that was the first impression when I got to the center. It's a rabbit hole that doesn't really have a bottom, which is very daunting, okay, but it's also awesome, right? How was the course workload? All right, so how was the course workload for a Cert TESOL? It was very intensive, guys. It was a lot to take on. They don't waste a lot of time before putting you in the classroom, like I said. It's going to be a few days and you'll be in front of a class. I believe the lessons were, I want to say, was it 30 minutes or 45 minutes? It was between 30 minutes and 45 minutes, your first lessons. And you're going to spend a lot of time planning those 45 minutes, okay? Because that's going to take up a lot of mental energy and a lot of energy just writing it. Thankfully, when you do a Cert TESOL, they're going to sit down with you and really tell you, it's kind of like almost minute by minute or 5 minutes by 5 minutes. They have this great way of just segmenting lessons. So right now I'm going to focus on this part of the lesson. Then I'm going to focus on this part of the lesson. They have a whole structure there, right? They're not going to just leave you in the dark and be like, right, you got 45 minutes with the students. You're going to teach them this grammar point, all right? We'll leave you to it. Off you go. No, right? Okay. There's a whole structure there that makes it much easier to break down, focus on the lesson in parts, and then you develop them one by one with materials, with your tutor, with the other tutees. All right. So don't worry about it too much. But that being said, is it intensive? Yes. Okay. It is intensive, and it's going to take up a lot of your energy. You're in the class quickly, right? And, like I said before, being observed, that takes some courage, all right? That takes some stones, to be honest. But it's a great fear to overcome. It's a great thing to do. And once you do it and you get past the initial awkwardness, you're gonna, oh my gosh, guys, the amount of times I've been observed, right? And, you make a silly speech mistake, you make an awkward joke, you laugh, you teach something and you look at the students and they're looking at you like, what's he doing? Or, also, even as an experienced teacher, I'm teaching lessons, right? And then I get observed and, I look at the face of my students and I can see they're like, oh, he's different. Why is he different? Like, what, sir? What do you want me to do? It's terrible. The one thing I say, guys, just a bit of advice for when you do get observed, don't try anything different or unique or original. Don't bother. Go with the basics, yeah? Just go with the basics and the fundamentals. They'll teach you that Cert TESOL and use it, use the basics. Don't try and go over the top. Don't try and showboat here, guys, okay? Try and get the basics and the fundamentals that your tutor is teaching you. Try and get them into the lesson, all right? And just write everything down. I write scripts, in the beginning days of teaching, I would just write scripts. If you're introducing a certain grammar point or a bit of language, even a question, I would write down the questions that I'm going to ask my students. And I'd just repeat them. All right, ask this, ask this, ask this. I would have it on a little notebook. And when I wasn't sure, I'd walk over to my desk. I would just hold my notebook up, look at it. Oh, yeah, I'm going to say that next. Oh, that's what I'm going to say next. Put it down, say it. All right. So, and also, by the way, the students that you teach, they're going to be adult students, and they know that you're a trainee. Okay, they usually do something called these classes economico, which is basically they're cheaper classes, knowing that they're going to get taught by teachers who are in training. Okay. Then also in terms of workload, guys, you're probably not going to have, if you move to a place, if you move to Barcelona for 1 month. Now, of course, you're going to be able to get out and do the sights and enjoy your life. But at the same time, you're not going to want to go out for beers on a Tuesday night when the next day you're when you're teaching or you've got something on. It's not really going to be like that. All of your focus is going to be on completing the course, the CELTA course. So don't look forward too much to the weekends because you're probably going to want to work, depending on how you're feeling with the course. You're probably going to want to work full on for at least one of the days on the weekend. maybe 2, all right? Or do a 4-hour work session on Saturday and work all day Sunday. But certainly you're not going to just get to Friday and be like, right, I'm done. Yeah, okay, see you on Monday, guys. It's not going to happen like that. Even me, with someone with a bit of experience, when it came to the weekend, I was thinking, oh, okay, shit, I got to do this, this, and this. I'll do it on Sunday. There we go. All right. So, and also, I recommend that you do it on Sunday. Personally, I prefer to have Saturday, have it free, enjoy yourself, enjoy your life, and then on Sunday you've got a little bit more time pressure there, so you kind of just have to do it on Sunday. If I say that I'm going to do it on Saturday, I'll half-ass it on Saturday, won't finish it, and have to do it on Sunday, and then I won't have no free time. But just be prepared that you're going away for a month, you're going away to a foreign city for a month, but it's not going to be like a holiday all the time. You know, this is going to occupy a lot of your time, all right? And so it should, you know, that's the point of going and getting a Cert TESOL. This is a proper experience. This is a proper education here that you're getting in a cram short of time. And the reward is internationally qualified across the world to teach English. So, you know, so it should be intensive. And in my opinion, that's a positive more than it is a negative. All right, take us back to your very first day teaching abroad. How did you feel about walking into the classroom? I've kind of really covered that, okay? Awkward, cringy, anxiety, gut-wrenching, misspeaking, telling awkward jokes, speaking awkwardly, making a fumble with my words. Guys, I don't know how this is going to happen, all right? Just accept the inevitable. Accept the inevitable. And I kind of told you, again, how I'd minimize that a little bit. Planning, writing little scripts for important parts of the lesson. But no matter how much you prepare, guys, there's going to be that little fumble that keeps you up at night, you know, a year later. But it's fine. It's absolutely fine. All right. Was there a moment during your training where you thought, what have I gotten myself into? Yes. Now, like I said, I'm not a grammar or spelling guy, and my grammar's terrible. All right. So there are a lot of moments during the course, or specifically the bits where they're teaching about the actual knowledge of grammar and things like phonology, right? And my mind was thinking, oh gosh, you know, Lewis, you don't know what you're doing, you don't know how to explain this. And that for me was that was the side of things that was overwhelming for me. It was the knowledge side of things, the grammar, the phonetics, things like this. I had quite a limited mindset as well. You know, I told myself things like, oh, you're really bad at spelling, you're really bad at grammar, you're really bad at phonology. And, you know, that mindset didn't help me as well, because I had this identity of myself where, oh, you're not a grammar guy. You know, you're not a phonology guy. Well, you actually should try and become one. And I have become one over the years now. I'm still on that journey. Okay, I'm still on that journey. Some of you will be better with things like pronunciation. Some of you will be better right now than I am after 8 years, okay? Just in terms of how you actually, you know, are using your pronunciation and such. But that for me was overwhelming. Things like tenses, conditionals, prepositions. When I heard these words for the first time, I was dying inside. Okay, like, you know I speak English, but what the fuck is a preposition? I don't know. How do I explain it? I don't know. So for me, that was the bit that was a bit overwhelming. And if there's one thing I regret actually on my Cert TESOL, when I was doing it for the 30 days, I didn't fully dive in to try and improve this. Okay, I was more concerned about the teaching style, and I developed the knowledge later as the years went on. But be very careful when you say something like, oh, I'm scared of teaching spelling, or I'm scared of teaching grammar, because that will stick with you after the Cert TESOL, and you'll get your first job and you'll still be scared of teaching grammar, and you won't teach it, and you'll try and build your lessons around not teaching grammar or not teaching pronunciation, and that's a dangerous place to start, because you're going to do all that, and then eventually, somewhere down the road, you know, you're going to go to a job where it's like, you know, that won't be acceptable. It's gonna, you know, the bear is in the woods, and that grammar bear is gonna jump out at you. That pronunciation bear is gonna jump out of you and eat you alive at some point, okay? So you need to prepare yourself, and the best place to start, in my opinion, is day one, when you walk into the Cert TESOL, all right? Even before, you could get a grammar Oxford basic book and just see, you know how to speak English, but just see, well, how is grammar actually taught? Why is this the way it is? You know, I would start that process. If you're thinking about taking a Cert TESOL in 6 months' time, I like to think big, guys. think far ahead. If you're taking a Cert TESOL in 6 months, 12 months, even 2 months, or maybe just buy that Oxford Grammar Basic book and just have a read, have a little look at some of the grammar points. This is why I say, if I blah blah blah, right? And it's all the tenses. So that was overwhelming. Phonology was overwhelming, okay, but it's going to be, and each one of us is going to have something else that is kind of a bit more scary for us, and that's the way it is. But what I'm trying to say is, don't let it become your identity which part of teaching you struggle with. Okay, mine was grammar. So for my first job and my second job, even though there were short contracts and stuff, I was the teacher who wanted to avoid grammar. Big mistake. Now I'm the teacher who loves grammar. I love it's like my favorite thing to teach. Okay, but so whatever your fear is, guys, I would say don't try and minimize it. Don't try and hide it away. Don't try and run from it. Just try and improve it if you can. All right, get it face on, and you'll become a better teacher. All right. What's one specific lesson from your Cert TESOL course that stuck with you the most? Yeah, one of my teacher trainers, she told me, because I expressed how worried I was about this grammar explanation and grammar instruction, she told me that, she said, Lewis, you don't need to know every bit of grammar in the world. You just need to know the grammar that's on your lesson plan really well. And that really helped me. So from then on, I was like, okay, I'm teaching this small grammar point. I'm going to study this. I'm going to learn this. I'm going to submerge myself in this one grammar point so that I can develop an explanation, so I can explain it clearly to students, so I can present it clearly to students, so I can write example sentences with this grammar. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to teach the lesson. And that's exactly what I did. And I still maintain that philosophy today, except slowly, after learning grammar point by grammar point by grammar point, slowly I've acquired much more knowledge. So now I can be that teacher who can do it off the dome. And eventually you'll become that as well. All right, so next questions. Let's go. This is about the people, so the trainers and my fellow peers. What were the trainers like? Did they intimidate you, inspire you, or both? So when I did my Cert TESOL, there would be a few teachers who would deliver like lessons to you or to the tutees, and then there was 2 trainers specifically who would work with you through the observations and such. I really liked all of the trainers. I really liked all of them. In general, across the board, they were very professional. They were very friendly and just very helpful. Okay, these guys are here to work with you. They want you to pass. They're not in there trying to catch you out or anything like this. They want you to become a teacher. They want you to have a bit of confidence, and they want to teach you the skills. And I absolutely loved it. They were so knowledgeable as well. Of course, some are maybe more friendly than others, but in general, there was this, we want you to succeed, and that's all I could ask for. They took their time with you. They brilliant. That's why, guys, you've got to go in person. You've got to go do the Cert TESOL in person. Because you don't get those little interactions that really matter. You miss them if you do it online. You miss the extra 10 minutes talking about a subject online. It's just more cut to the chase online, and you miss those little extra bits in between. How did you get along with the other trainees? Were they competitive, supportive, or a mix? There was a little bit of competition actually, but that mostly come down. A couple of people were really competitive about how much Spanish they knew and how much Spanish they could speak. Even though we're doing a course about learning how to teach English, a couple of the students the tutees that I was with, and I was a tutee as well, they were very competitive about how much Spanish they knew. I didn't particularly enjoy that aspect of it, but in general, they were nice. They were friendly. Again, everyone wanted everyone to succeed. That was really, really important. There were different age groups, different nationalities. Just trying to think off the top of my head. It was me. I think I was the only English person there. There was someone from Australia, someone from New Zealand, a couple people from America, someone from Canada. They were the main ones. They're the ones, sorry, not the main ones. They're the ones that I could think of off the top of my head. And, it was all different age groups, There was one guy who was a military veteran from the US. You know, he was in his 30s. There was another lady from the US who was in her 60s. So yeah, guys, military vets. You know, I've met a lot of them now in TEFL and teaching English. That's really interesting to me. So if you're out there listening and you're a military veteran and you want a career that can take you abroad, it seems like becoming a TEFL teacher is something that lots of other veterans have taken advantage of, used, and that's fantastic. So you likely won't be the only one out there, guys, if you're listening to me now and you're a military vet. And the same for my older audience out there. You know, this lady, like I said, was in her 60s. I have met lots of people who decided to become TEFL teachers in their 50s or 60s, and they're such great teachers, all right? As long as you got the mindset of going there and you don't know it all, you know, and you learn the new styles, you learn how to proper English language instruction, what's stopping you? What's stopping you? It's great. I've met a few older people who have done TEFL, and they all seem to be living very nice lives to me. So yeah, don't let any of that stop you. The military vet. Oh yeah, be careful. Banter, right? Okay, so obviously in England we have a bit of a joke, and especially with people that we're friendly with. Okay, so we'll have jokes, we'll have back and forths with people that we like, all right, and we'll poke fun at them and have a little laugh. Now, I did this once with the American military vet who was on my Cert TESOL. He missed a day, right? He was sick, and I actually felt, you know, obviously I wish him well in a safe recovery. And I made a bit of an arsehole joke to him. When he came in, just to him, I said, "Oh, mate, how is it being a part-timer?" Right? And God, why the fuck did I say that, right? I was saying it as a term of endearment to just him. There was no one else listening. And he looked at me and he said, "I'll slit your fucking throat." And I thought, oh, right, sorry. And yeah, so that was it. Hopefully that doesn't happen to you on your course, but of course there might be cultural differences in terms of what banter means between friends, because he was my actual friend as well, and we continue to be friendly after that. But that was dark. Anyway, did you meet anyone during your course who left a lasting impression on you? Yeah, I'd say one of my trainers, one of my Cert TESOL trainers. He had his life set up in Barcelona. You know, he had his wife, kids. He was a teacher trainer. He was from England as well, so I probably related to him in that way. You know, just funny, chill dude. I thought he was a bloody legend, you know. Even though he was a professional, you know, he still had a really great sense of humour. And yeah, so he inspired me for sure. I think he was in his late 30s or so. But I always I think back to that and I think, oh, what a legend. I'm someone who, I always look up to my teachers, even teachers from school. And certainly my teacher trainer on my Cert TESOL also looked up at him and said, oh, you know, this guy's living his life, and I really respect that, so I definitely looked up to him. All right, moving on, guys, and I think we'll probably wrap it up soon. We're coming up to an hour, so I'll probably do an hour, even though this is going on a lot longer than I realised it would. All right, looking back, do you think the Cert TESOL prepared you well for teaching? Yes, it massively helped me with the structure and the outline of all of my lessons. It really set up the foundation for what it meant to me to teach English to students. So it was a massive help, and I used it in my in the jobs that I received. And even today, sometimes I'll reflect back on what I learned on my Cert TESOL, and I'll adjust parts of my lesson to remind me, oh no, this should be like this, or you should teach the pronunciation like this, or oh, you're forgetting about these types of questions, all this kind of stuff. So absolutely, it gave me the confidence to teach English to students. So that was brilliant. Was there anything about the course that felt unnecessary or overcomplicated? Now, I've said things that felt complicated, but that's okay. Anything unnecessary, I would say no, I don't think so. Okay, on the Cert TESOL, it didn't feel like there was stuff that was unnecessary. I have heard that on the CELTA, sometimes it can dive a bit too much into theory, but I don't know if that's true. I don't know, sure, I've not done it. But what I will say is, for sure, in 1 month, you're not going to learn everything there is to learn about teaching English, and there is still going to be a lack in regards to classroom management, because the students you're teaching are adults, and they're not going to cause you any hassle. But of course, when you start teaching in academies and stuff, you might be teaching teenagers, and there might be a bit of classroom management that needs to be implemented. And I don't think on the Cert TESOL that you fully understand what that entails. But, you know, and as with anything, guys, the best way to learn is on the job. So, of course, you do your month, you're prepared, you've got the outline, you've got the tools, you know how to do it. But then, of course, then you get a job, and then it's a little bit different. And just on that topic as well, there is something that will be a challenge. So, like I said, you'll be teaching like a small group for 45 minutes in your lesson observations. And I'm so sorry, I can't remember how often you do that, all right? But it's not like every day, all right? It's not every day, but you do it regularly. Then, when you finish the TESOL, you're going to get a job. And you might be teaching 16 hours a week. Now, you teach nowhere near to 16 hours a week when you're doing the Cert TESOL. So your first job is going to be very intensive for you because you're used to this really slow process. Oh yeah, I put the lesson plan together like this, nice and neatly. And then your first job, you're going to be like, hang on, wait, I've got how many hours to teach and plan? And that will be a challenge. And when I first started, massive tip for you guys, if you can, try and get your first job, if it aligns properly, to working in a summer school. A British summer school. And the reason why I say that is because it's every 2 weeks usually they'll get a new group of students in, and usually it's not very high pressure, the classes can be a bit fun. So if you do a load of shit lessons, not shit lessons, if you do a load of lessons that are not optimal or experimental or you know, it's a great place to trial and error is what I'm saying, a summer school. Because you get to experiment with the things you've done. And if it's your first job, you just get that little bit of relief of pressure, because if you have students in a language academy and you know you've got them for 10 months, that first week and those first 2 weeks are really important to establishing that you're the teacher that's going to really help them. And if you fail that in the first week or the first 2 weeks, you know, you might lose the class, and that can be really difficult. Whereas if you go to a summer school, we'll just teach a group of students for 2 weeks or 1 week and then swap around with new students, that pressure's not there. You don't have them forever, so you made the mistake. So top tip for you guys, if you can, try and get to a British summer school to teach some English before you go into language academy work or move to that country where you're going to stay for 10 months or so. It's a super great way to, after your Cert TESOL, get a bit of experience, make the mistakes, etc., and then move on. All right, let's go to the next question. What advice would you give to someone about to start the Cert TESOL? Like I said before, I would get the Oxford Grammar Basic Book just to have an idea of how grammar's taught. I would brace, you know, it's going to be an intensive month. It's going to be an intensive month. It's going to be full on. You're going to learn a lot of things, but it's going to be great. In the long run, it is going to be so good. It's going to be so good for you. It's been so great for me. And I mean, what you get at the end of 1 month is so worth the time, the money that it costs to get it, in my opinion. All right, especially if I look back at what it's given me. All right, next one. Did having a recognised qualification like Cert TESOL open more doors for you? I don't know if it opened more doors for me, but all the doors that I've knocked on have been open. So I'll just say yes, certainly I've never had anyone question my qualification, my credentials. The Cert TESOL really speaks for itself. Get a Cert TESOL, go work in a British summer school, go work in an academy. Guys, your CV's looking good. Be good at an interview. That's it. It opened every single entry level door into TEFL that you can get, which was fantastic. You're not just a backpack. After you get a Cert TESOL or a CELTA, you're not just a backpacker with a €50 TEFL certificate, right, which has TEFL on a piece of paper. You are internationally qualified. So that's that. If you had to do the training all over again, would you? Why or why not? Yeah, absolutely. I'd even go to Spain still. Even post-Brexit, I'd still go to Spain because the training centres are so good. The students are so good. It's a great country to move to. It's so good. All right. So especially if you're from Britain or from somewhere in Europe, taking a huge leap and just going somewhere like Thailand straight away. Not for me personally. I like to have the ability to just fly home really quickly. And if it's Spain or Barcelona, for example, like I'm actually flying to England in 2 weeks for my mum's birthday. And the return flight cost me £52. And I don't buy any suit. I just got the bag that you put under the seat, a big bag to put under the seat. So I get to fly home for my mum's birthday for £52. I just can't do that if I'm in Thailand or somewhere like that. And that's important to me. Right. So I think Spain is a fantastic entry-level country to begin TEFL, or to just train and then go somewhere else. Or stay, whatever. Challenges. What's the hardest thing about moving abroad that no one prepares you for? Well, maybe not moving abroad, but like I said, that teaching schedule. Going from just the observation lessons to 16 to 20 hours a week, that's a big change. And what you'll have to do is learn ways to optimize your planning process so that you're not spending, ridiculous amount of hours on planning. You will be spending hours on planning, but you want to look for ways to shorten that so you can have really effective lessons, and you can kind of create your own factory of lesson plans. That's where you'll want to get in the end. We're going to wrap this up in a couple of minutes, guys. Was there a moment that made you think, yes, it was worth it? Yeah, I have these moments all of the time. If I'm sat at a coffee shop enjoying a coffee for €2 and I'm looking out the window and it's sunny and I'm just people watching and I'm sitting with my notebook or I'm sitting with my laptop, I think, yes, this was worth it. Or maybe I'm playing football in Barcelona. I look around and I see all the buildings around me. I see this beautiful football pitch and I'm paying €6 and I'm getting some exercise. I think, wow, I'm so thankful that I'm doing this. Maybe I'm sat on a park bench and I'm people watching and the sun's on my face and I'm eating a sandwich. Maybe I don't know, all right? But I have these moments all of the time where I think, I'm so glad that I did this. I'm so glad I got my qualification to teach English and become an English teacher, move from England. That being said, one thing... let's just move on to the next question. It's fine. Is there one memory or story that sums up why you love this lifestyle? Yeah, meeting my girlfriend. That's about as good as it gets for me. If you had to explain why living and teaching abroad is so fulfilling, how would you put it into words? I would say that you get a new home. Before I left England, I thought that I didn't like England. All right, I thought, I'm done with England. I don't like England. There's nothing good about England. I was one of these people you see them all the time. I can't stand it. Ironically, because that was me. I would be one of these people who said, what do you think of England? And I was like, it's shit. Or I hate it. Oh, England's shit, piece of shit, worst country ever, right? I used to be like that. Then I moved abroad and I loved living abroad and I developed a new home. But while I was abroad, do you know what else I developed? I developed a love for England. When I moved away, I started looking back at it and was, oh yeah, that was good. Yeah, that was nice. Oh, there's nothing quite like that. And there is no place like home. And I love England. I love where I'm from, okay? I love going back to visit. When I got a girlfriend here in Barcelona and we went for the first time back to meet my parents, back to my hometown, and I got to show her around, show her the places that I go to, show her the culture, show her the food, show her the way of life with my parents and things like this. I love that so much. That was one of the best things I ever did. And I realized, I do love my country. I do love where I'm from. So 2 things that I loved was, 1, a new home. Because the other thing is, when you move to a new country and you make it your home, eventually you'll start to have new home comforts. So you develop like a whole new set of home comforts. Cafes you go to, restaurants you go to, places you like to walk, places all these kind of things. You develop new home comforts, which is really fun, really exciting. And then also, it substantially increased the love and the home comforts I have for my home country. So double whammy there, that I absolutely loved. And let's finish with one more question, guys. Oh, no, I have no more. I actually worked through the questions. But I'm sure that you guys have loads of questions about teacher training, becoming a teacher, and all these sorts of things. Thank you so much for sticking with me. What I plan to do with this is going to be kind of like a podcast series, I guess, where sometimes it will be me solo, just waffling away, giving information. I would love, though, to base it off of the questions that you guys ask in the comments. So please ask questions, okay? Please ask questions in the comments below. I mean, probably no one's watching this, so don't, whatever. But if you have questions about TEFL or moving abroad or moving to Spain, please write them in the comments below. And what I'll do, I'll use all of these comments, and I've got a TikTok and things like this, and I'll use them for future episodes. Another thing that I would love to do is talk with people who are TEFL teachers, who have done the teacher training, and just talk about their life and what they're doing now. So in this video, I've really just focused on the training aspect of it, but I've not really focused on the general day-to-day life for me and what I've experienced working in different jobs as a TEFL teacher. So that'll be one, talking to other teachers, talking to people from other countries. Hit subscribe, guys. I'm going to drop as much value as I can possibly offer on this topic, and I'd love to be the guy that you associate with TEFL and or becoming a TEFL teacher. That would be fantastic. All right, thank you so much. I'll see you next time. Adios.